Welcome to the American Academy of Grief Counseling's Videogram on grief in midlife crisis and aging. And obviously, grief as an element of an emotion is something that we experience due to change. Whenever a loss occurs of some type, there is always change to come with it. And the grief is actually the adjustment of dealing with that loss or change in itself and coming to a healthy equilibrium with that particular change or loss. And of course, with aging, we lose many things. We lose what we once looked like or once was able to do. And it is a form of what I would call finite grief in itself because it's intangible. It's something that you cannot touch. So aging is change, and change leads to grief in itself because of the alterations that you have to make in itself. So any change can trigger loss. It's how well does one adjust to this particular change. And when a midlife crisis comes, it's a non-finite type of grief. An individual is faced with numerous types of abstract concepts of loss in itself. Now, these midlife crises that occur for both men and women can bring about a positive or a negative change depending on one's coping ability and support system in itself. Midlife crisis that is improperly navigated can lead to poor choices, legal, financial, and relationship troubles. And it can really send a person down a dark, dark hole. Also, in regards to that dark hole can lead to numerous things such as depression or substance abuse. And these are things that are these are things of the negative aspect. Now, many things can trigger a midlife crisis. Usually the most obvious, the physical changes that begin to happen in the late 30s and throughout the 40s and early 50s themselves. Individuals have this avatar of what they think they still look like, maybe from pictures that were 10 years ago or 12 years ago. And without seeing themselves all the time, they're sometimes astonished when a certain photo appears of a recent gathering and they look and they start to notice that maybe there's more weight, that there's a few more wrinkles, some of the hair is graying, or maybe an individual is beginning to lose hair. There's balding taking place. And maybe they'll even come to the conclusion that they've lost some of their athletic abilities or things that they once took for granted in itself. And this can lead to a shock to many individuals, or a trigger which leads one into a midlife crisis of wanting to rectify this. There can also be a trigger that is more mental, when one has an existential moment, so to speak. It's when one experiences a loss of a parent or family member, or a child grows up and moves out or goes to college or becomes married. So these create new family roles. And again, change or loss of something that once was is no longer, and it's asking for the individual to enter into a new type of relationship. Another trigger sometimes is unfulfilled dreams and goals. An individual might start to recognize their age and go, well, where am I financially when I thought I would be when I was 21, having these great dreams of wealth and so forth? Or where is my career? Did I ever get that job that I wanted to do, or did I settle for something else? Academic status as well. Did I go forward and get that degree or not? Travel. When I was young, I thought of going to all these wonderful and exotic faraway places, and I've not left my hometown. So these unfulfilled dreams and goals can come into play, which will also trigger a midlife crisis. In addition to that, we have relationship problems, changes in sex life and sex drive, and mutual lack of attraction maybe to a partner that was once very strong has weakened through time. And this can also lead to a midlife crisis for a particular individual. So everyone is going to experience change due to age, and everyone has various reactions they can give to it. It can be a positive thing or it can be a negative thing. With positive reactions, there's a positive coping mentality in dealing with the particular aging. You're coping in a healthy fashion. You're reframing the idea of age itself, reframing the thinking. I'm not getting older. You might think I'm getting better, or I'm still young at heart, or at least I'm still able to be healthy and be as active as I am for my age. Or with my age comes a variety of other benefits and things I did not have when I was a younger person, or a person with less financial capabilities, or a person who didn't have a nice home to instead maybe just lived in an apartment. So there's ways to reframe aging itself. And I think that's a useful tool. There's also fulfilling some of these goals and dreams and making adjustments to some of these expectations that aren't met. It can be a wake-up call. Like if someone is in their mid-40s, you still have a chance to get that degree, or you still have an opportunity to travel where you want to travel. Or maybe you do want to learn that second language and you haven't done it. So the minor jolt, the trigger, which has made this crisis come about in your mind, can be a way also to fulfill things, to put you back on track. And in some cases, it might be health, engaging in physical health, going to the gym more, taking up a hobby, and embracing the new family roles, and having a sense of purpose that is redefined, and looking for life as something that's not shrinking and going away, but something that is expanding. Now, negative reactions are for those who may not have that type of coping mechanism or the support at home. And their negative reactions can result in manic purchases. Individuals might go out and purchase their dream car, which they really cannot afford, or they might go through drastic surgeries, facelifts, and so forth, and various other augmentations to the body. Some might go into a phase of reliving their youth through infidelity and more drinking and substance abuse itself. Others might go and do other drastic changes in life, behaviors that do not match what they normally would do. And this is a red flag for many family members and friends of the individual when they start to see this. Others might start to abandon their duties during these changes and become absent in individuals that they need to help and take care of. But they're so in crisis and they are so mixed up with this change that they can't just grasp, that they begin to falter in what they're supposed to be doing itself. And this can lead to self-hate, it can lead to depression, and again, substance abuse in itself. So we want to try to see this change, this midlife change, as something positive, as something that can be turned into something good through proper adjustment, not something that makes the situation far, far worse. So happiness and healthy transition is important. I think an important term is anchoring, having something that anchors you in the current of the ocean. With all this change, all of these accidental physical changes to your body, yourself, your relationship with others within the family hierarchy, there has to be something that anchors you. And it necessarily cannot be in something that is just physical. Physical things can be stolen, physical things can deteriorate, they can be lost. Happiness has to be in something higher. And when we say higher, it could be a religious person's faith or a non-religious person's ideology that gives them their idea of what their self is. and what their sense of purpose is, regardless of whether you're there in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, or 70s, that this is an element of who you are that will always remain the same. There may be accidental changes that occur, but the essence of oneself is still there. And this is what an anchor does. It keeps one from flowing to far too many directions on the open sea of life, so to speak. And it enables one to have some identity, some confidence, some focus that this is going to go somewhere after an inventory of life, as written there, is taken care of, or looking at what needs to be done or what just needs to be accepted as. But one still has that inventory of what they've done, who they are, and where they're going. The other important thing I mentioned is support. A lot of family members need support during this time because it can be a big shock to their system. So ultimately, in middle age, we want to exit the process with a new sense of direction, acknowledging the feelings that we might have and answering them. I mean, we have to acknowledge if something is wrong. And if we don't, it becomes worse. So if you're feeling bad about your physical appearance, or if someone is feeling bad about lack of a particular accomplishment, talk to oneself. Share this also with others within your support circle. Acknowledge the problem. And with positive adjustment, one can eventually come to a conclusion or maybe a peaceful acceptance of the particular situation itself. So I hope these words and ideas help a little bit. In essence, this is a non-finite type of grief. So grief counseling, crisis counseling are all excellent ways to help navigate this troubled time of life, which is probably second only to adolescence and the teenage years in the amount of change that an individual is going through. So we have our two programs here in grief counseling and crisis intervention, and our phone is 330-652-7776, and our email is info@aihcp.org. So hopefully some of this advice can help transition one through the midlife crisis into a more serene type of peace in one's later 40s, 50s, and so forth, to enjoy one's accomplishments, and for those things that haven't been accomplished yet, to peacefully proceed and to fulfill that while also fulfilling one's duties in a healthy way, mentally, physically, and emotionally. I'd like to thank you for listening and have a good day.